I do want to just say, look, so the crimes were falsifying business records. Now, the reason I didn't know that before is because I'm not a lawyer and I'm not the journalist who is anchoring this entire show who should have told you that it was falsifying business records.
You know, I don't mean to pick on Francesca too much here, but it's very telling that even the liberals who are going on television to defend this ruling have to Google in the breaks to figure out what the crime was, and even then, I'm sorry to say, misrepresent what the actual supposed crime was. The reason here that this has to take... Well, excuse me one second, Francesca. I'll just finish my point real quickly.
Books. That's the same thing. Yeah.
In this video, Francesca Fiorentini torches Michael Knowles in this Unhinged debate, and Francesca comes in totally honest. Like, she admits she didn't know the exact legal charge off the top of her head because, well, she's not a lawyer or the show's anchor. And that's totally fair. But Michael Knowles tries to pounce on her like that's some kind of own, ignoring the fact that she's literally right. It's not her job to memorize legal codes, especially when the host didn't even bother explaining it. Instead of engaging the point, Michael just pivots to the smug nonsense about how even liberals need to Google the crime. But Francesca just claps back, reminding him it's because she's not the one running the segment. It's a short exchange between them, but she just totally flips his attack and makes him look like he's reaching hard for a dunk that never lands. So make sure to watch till the end to see how Francesca Fiorentini torches Michael Knowles in this Unhinged debate.
It's not a felony, not a crime, but anyway, that's a point for another time. The reason why even the great defenders of this conviction can't... yes, to you as well. The reason that they can't articulate this is because it's not really a crime. That's why they had to upend 234 years of precedent for this. And it gets back to a point that you made earlier, Piers, and that you made, Kevin, which is that Alvin Bragg really overplayed his hand. Sure, he overplayed his hand to some degree, but what else were they going to do? Donald Trump was always going to be the Republican nominee in 2024. A lot of people feel that he was gypped in 2020. He's the biggest guy in the party. It was going to happen. And Trump poses a real threat to the liberal establishment. He's not a Mitt Romney type Republican. He has different views from the so-called uniparty on things like trade, on things like immigration, and things like foreign policy and war. Trump posed a major threat. That's why they took such extraordinary measures for the last 8 years to take this guy out. They weren't able to do it politically. They weren't even really able to do it at the ballot box. So what's left? The only thing left to do is to try to throw him in prison so that he can't campaign for the election. I agree, it's backfiring.
This is not a federal case, Michael. You know that. It's not even a federal case. Why do you think that it's not a DOJ case? It's not a Biden case. It's not a Merrick Garland thing. It's New York state law. So the idea that this is somehow politically motivated is all made up in your head, because what you do on your show every day is you groom your audience for fascism and you set them up for a complete takeover of the DOJ. This is all about allowing Trump to get away with any crime he wants, as you sort of slighted and sort of, laid out very nonchalantly just a little bit ago. He was impeached twice. Doesn't really matter that he tried to blackmail the leader of Ukraine into digging up non-existent dirt on Joe Biden, but that doesn't matter to you
Joe
or
Biden
your
threatened
followers.
To withhold arms.
You want to make sure. You want to make
Francesca,
sure that when
you're
Trump is
accusing me of fascism.
He can get away.
Francesca, you're accusing me of fascism. That's a big charge.
Education.
All I would point out is that it's not my party that's imprisoning its political opponents right now. So if we're going to throw that accusation about it.
I was about to say one of the key tenets of fascism is you imprison your political opponents.
Michael Knowles flat out lies here, calling the conviction not a felony and not a crime. Like the jury didn't just hand Trump 34 felony counts. That's not a spin, that's just full-on delusion. And then he throws in some dramatic 234 years of precedent line, like it means anything in a legit jury trial under state law. Francesca doesn't even flinch though. She just clowns on him mid-rant and then calmly reminds him that this case isn't federal, it's New York state law. And dragging Biden or Merrick Garland is just pure misdirection. Then she lands the real hit, calling out how Michael's grooming his audience for fascism by defending Trump no matter what. It sounds bold, but she's right. Undermining the legal system, pretending prosecution is tyranny, that's textbook authoritarian fluff. Michael tries to flip it by saying it's not my party doing the imprisoning, but that's just lazy. His argument only works if you ignore the crimes entirely.
Let me come back to Mark Geragos. I want to play a clip from Donald Trump at the weekend. This is talking to Fox and Friends. We talks about the prospect of maybe going to jail.
The judge could decide to say, hey, house arrest or even jail.
It could.
How do you face what that could look
I'm okay with it. I saw one of my lawyers the other day on television saying, oh, no, you don't want to do that to the president. I said, you don't beg for anything. You just, the way it is. I don't know that the public would stand it, I'm not sure the public would stand for it. With a,
you tried house arrest or...
I think it would be tough for the public to take. At a certain point, there's a breaking point.
Now, Mark, the question I was going to ask you is that a lot of people think the way Trump has been trashing the judge, the court, the process and everything night after night when he comes out to TV cameras, that under normal circumstances, you could trash talk your way into a prison sentence. Is that remotely possible here?
Well, let me give you the legal analysis and then I'll give you the political. There is no instance I can think of where you're convicted of 34 felonies in state court in America, in any jurisdiction, while you are found in contempt 9 times and a judge threatening to put you in jail, where when you're convicted, the judge doesn't remand you, meaning put you in jail right there pending sentencing. Obviously, that was not going to happen here. Obviously, at least to me politically, this judge is not going to put him in jail on July 11th. I don't even think he's going to give him house arrest. My friend Alan Dershowitz suggested something that I had not thought of. I have been speculating that the judge will give him 30, 60, or 90 days in jail, but stay it pending the appeal. Alan thinks that he will impose a state prison sentence of, say, 2 years and just hang it over his head. And that's somewhat diabolical because if you've got that state prison sentence over his head and he does not win the election in November, there's all kinds of mischief that could happen after that. So I don't think, if I'm a betting man, I don't think he's going to go into jail or into custody on July 11th. If he was somebody other than Trump, he would be in custody right now.
I mean, Kevin, the whole idea...
Yes, that's a really important point, and everyone needs to remember that.
Yeah, it is an important point. Kevin, just again, I'm across the pond at the moment, but I love America, and this is just this whole idea that we're even discussing the possibility of incarcerating an American president. I made the point the other day that if it was for running an illegal drone program that killed thousands of innocent people, or it was wholesale corruption on a very serious scale at the heart of government, something of that magnitude, then okay, I'd understand taking action against an American president. But the idea that Trump is going through all this and may end up with a suspended sentence or a hung sentence hanging over him, whatever it may be, as Mark just articulated, the idea that an American president, left or right, is facing this potentially happening in 6 weeks' time, in election year, it sends a shudder down my spine, if I'm honest, because I don't know what it makes America as a country.
So Pierce sets this up like it's the end of democracy just because Trump might get jail time? And honestly, it's just exhausting. Like, this guy got convicted of 34 felonies, trampled gag orders, trashed the judge nightly, and we're supposed to act shocked that prison is even mentioned? Mark Geragos just breaks it down clearly. In literally any other case, the dude would be in custody already. Trump's only walking around because of who he is, not because the justice system is out of line. And when Francesca jumped in to back that up, saying that it's a really important point, she's not just tossing filler. She's saying, hey, if this were anyone else, we wouldn't be hand-wringing about the symbolism of jailing a felon. It's only controversial because it's Trump. Mark even spells it out. He might get a sentence stayed until after the election. And Pierce even takes it into melodrama mode, saying if this were over war crimes or corruption, I'd understand. Like, okay, but Trump wasn't convicted of launching drone strikes. He was convicted of falsifying business records to cover up hush money during a campaign. You don't get to ignore that because it's less flashy than a missile strike.
Well, it has never happened before in a G7 country. It happened once, I believe, in a G20 country, but I think was acquitted. This isn't really about Trump anymore from the perspective you're talking about. it's about the American brand. It's about the executive. It's about the White House. It's about the American economy. It's about people's perception about investing in it. There's a pretty big discomfort, and I know this from both Democrats and Republicans. There's many outcomes of this sentencing, but I don't think anybody contemplates that he would be jailed. That would not go over well, I think, at all. I don't think that would be. This judge has a huge responsibility on his shoulders because it hasn't been tested by the appellate court. So it would be wise, perhaps, to be very, very lenient. And I would suggest probation, maybe, or something less, so that he can go on with the political process of running, his Republican conference, decide if he's going to be and who his vice president is going to be, and setting up for the election just months away at that point. And as many have said on both sides of the party, let the people decide this situation on November 5th.
Right.
If they make Trump president again, then we're talking about the Oval Office. We want to be careful not to get in his way as he governs the land. I would have thought bringing the porn star case after the election would have been better. It was really unusual to listen. And I was in London, where you are, talking to sovereign wealth and institutional investors. As you know, I'm trying to buy TikTok, so I'm trying to line up a syndicate. And Stormy Daniels' testimony was embarrassing, talking about condoms and penis size and what does that have to do with state finance or federal finance law? It has nothing. It was really trashy and not at the level you would want to brand a G7 or G20 country. And I think most people are embarrassed about it, to be honest.
I agree with you. And talking of TikTok, Trump joined it, Francesca, at the weekend. He got 3 million followers immediately. But also this happened at the UFC fight. Dana White let him out. And this is just after he'd been convicted of 34 counts of this crime. Take a look at what the crowd reacted was.
Pretty cool for Sean Strickland to have a moment there with Donald Trump after a win.
President Trump, you're the man, bro. It is a damn travesty what they're doing to you. I'll be donating to you, my man. Let's get it done.
I mean, that followed the entrance. Sorry, Mark?
By the way, Piers, if I have spent the last 2 days having people talk to me at a conference I'm at, telling me that one of the phenomenons on TikTok, as Kevin invoked it, is people saying, I'm voting for the felon, I'm voting for the felon.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, you want a poll? I'll give you a poll. Take a look at what's happening there at the UFC fight and take a look at what's happening on TikTok.
And by the end of all this, Kevin's whole takedown boils down to this hurts America's image, like investors care more about TikTok details than actual justice. He even calls Stormy Daniels' testimony trashy, not because it wasn't relevant, but because it embarrassed the brand. Then Mark just drives it home. People aren't treating this like a serious legal moment. They're chanting vote for the felon and turning it into a meme. It's just wild. This isn't even about justice anymore. It's about who can get the biggest crowd pop after a conviction, even with all the biases and lies said. And speaking of biases, are you getting tired of getting news from biased news sources? One outlet says one thing and another says the complete opposite? How are you supposed to know what's actually true? That's where ground news comes in. It lets you compare how different media outlets, whether it's left, right, or center, are covering the same story. So you can see the full picture instead of just the echo chamber. And here's the best part. Click the link in the description and get a 40% off the Vantage tier, which gives you even deeper insights in media bias and political trends. So stay informed, think for yourself, and check out ground news in the description down below.